When the world starts to crack, when the systems you once believed were unbreakable collapse, you learn a painfully brutal lesson. Everything becomes empty. It won't be your favorite foods that save you. Not the premium canned goods, not the 300 survival kit, and definitely not a pantry full of snacks. Survival has never been about taste. Survival is about strategy. And here is the slap of reality most Americans don't want to face. 90% of what they stockpile is useless. Half of it can even betray them within the first year. And only 5 items, yes, only 5, can actually keep you alive in a real crisis. American history proves it. Wars, famine, widespread blackouts, frozen supply chains, inflation, supermarket shutdowns. Today, you won't just learn the 5 items that can keep you alive. I will show you why missing even one of them can make your entire survival plan collapse like dominoes. Prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear will change the way you think about survival forever. 5. Rice. The dividing line. In the world of survival, people can show off all kinds of things. Tactical flashlights, waterproof tents, expensive gear that looks cool just by holding it. But there is one truth anyone who has lived through a real crisis in America eventually learns. Those things do not keep you alive for long. When the system breaks, when supermarkets shut down, when the supply chain collapses, the thing that decides whether you remain standing is the most humble item in your kitchen: rice. Rice isn't just food. Rice is the dividing line between 2 kinds of people: the ones who say they're ready and the ones who are ready. You can prepare every survival gadget on Earth, but if you don't prepare rice, you are still playing a dangerous game without even realizing it. Because in every chaotic moment in American history, from blizzards to wars to supply chain breakdowns, the people who survived the longest were the people who still had rice. American history has proven this clearly across generations. The winter of 1888, recorded in history as the Great Blizzard, was one of the most brutal snowstorms ever faced by people in the Northeast. Powerful winds, heavy snow, and a sky turned completely white for days. Transportation collapsed entirely. Railways froze. Neighborhoods became mazes of snow. Many families were trapped in their homes for a full week, unable to go out and buy food. Survival accounts from that time say the families that made it through were the ones who still had an old sack of rice at home. Not canned meat, not bread, but a small pot of rice, rationed carefully, keeping everyone alive one day at a time. It wasn't a delicious meal. It was the meal that forced you to stay alive. Nearly half a century later, during World War II, the United States had to implement a food rationing system. Meat, butter, sugar, all were scarce. Even people with money couldn't buy them. That was when rice stepped into its quiet but most important role. Millions of families across America relied on rice to stretch their meals, feed their children, and maintain the health of those who had to work in factories. A pot of rice didn't just prevent hunger. It helped people feel that even in wartime, they still had something familiar to hold on to. A simple meal, but one that brought a very real feeling. We are still alive, and that remained true into the 21st century. In 2020, when supermarkets across the United States were emptied due to supply chain disruptions, one image repeated in many places: long lines of Americans waiting just to buy rice. Not because they liked eating rice, not because it was familiar in their culture, but because a deep survival instinct pushed them to find the cheapest, most reliable, longest-lasting food. That food was always rice. So what makes rice the backbone of every stockpile plan? The real reason is very simple. Rice does not betray you. It is stable, easy to store, and capable of sustaining people for long periods at one of the lowest costs of any food. As long as it is stored properly, rice can last more than 2 decades without losing its nutritional value. And unlike many other foods, rice does not require a refrigerator, does not need a freezer, and does not require complicated conditions. A dry and dark space is enough for it to become a long-term lifeline. But what's even more remarkable is rice's ability to feed the spirit. People can endure the lack of flavor and lack of variety, but they cannot endure the feeling of losing control. When the outside world is chaotic, when the news is full of warnings, when the sky looks darker than usual because the power is out, a bowl of hot rice brings a feeling that's hard to describe. The feeling that you still have control over something. It is stability in instability. It is the steady breath in the middle of panic. It is a small but persistent rhythm of life reminding you that the world hasn't completely collapsed. Many of your viewers understand this very well. One person once said, "Rice, beans, flour, salt water, that's enough." And another shared a practical tip. Put small amounts of rice in the freezer to prevent bugs. That is knowledge learned by people who have paid the price through freezing winters, storms that shut down entire states, and days when supermarkets were completely empty. Rice lasts a long time, but it is the feeling of still having a proper meal that makes it the backbone of every family during a crisis. And that is why rice is not simply food. It is the dividing line between people who only talk and people who truly prepare. People who fill their pantry with snacks and people who prepare for real survival. People who hope they will survive and people who will survive. Rice is humble, unnoticed, but it is the foundation of every long-term plan. It is not flashy, not expensive, not something to show off, but it stands firm when everything else collapses. And in survival, only the things that stand firm are worth trusting. If you've ever witnessed rice saving your household during a crisis, comment the word rice below. Share your thoughts. I want to hear everything you have to say. 4. Beans. The muscle of survival. There is a kind of hunger that carbohydrates can never solve. The kind of hunger that makes your legs shake, your hands cold, your head dizzy, and your body begin to eat its own muscle to survive. This is the kind of hunger that happens in war, during major storms, during long power outages, or when supermarket shelves are empty. And only one thing can stop that terrifying hunger: protein. And when it comes to survival protein, only one thing has stood strong for the past 100 years: beans. Not meat, not milk, not those protein powder bags everyone assumes are miracle cures, but beans, the cheapest, longest lasting, and strongest food in every crisis. If rice is the backbone of life, then beans are the muscle of life. Without them, you're only living until the day your body betrays you. Many Americans who lived through the winter power outage in Texas in 2021 said they didn't die from the cold. They weakened because they lacked protein. Many families had only instant noodles and bread. But after 3 to 4 days, their bodies started to collapse. Exhaustion, dimming vision, blood sugar dropping, not from lack of calories, but from lack of protein and fat. Those who survived said the only thing that helped them get back on their feet was an old pot of beans still in the pantry. Just one bowl of hot beans, no meat, no seasoning, was enough to wake up the body. Or in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, many American families couldn't afford to buy meat for weeks at a time. Children grew up on rice and beans. These meals are recorded in hundreds of historical documents. No one called them delicious, but they kept entire families from collapsing while jobs, food supplies, and social safety nets were falling apart in front of their eyes. Beans were the only thing they had, and also the only thing they needed. Beans have a power that many people don't understand: chemical, physiological, and survival power. When you combine beans with rice, the body creates a complete protein equivalent to beef. This is not a rumor. This is basic biology taught in every military nutrition course. You can lose power, have no refrigerator, be unable to hunt, be unable to fry meat, be unable to preserve red meat. But you can live like a real soldier with nothing but rice and beans. Beans also have one terrifying advantage. They keep you full for a long time. In a crisis, hunger doesn't just weaken the body, it destroys the spirit. But a bowl of hot beans keeps you steady for 6 to 8 hours, with stable blood sugar and energy that doesn't crash like when you eat noodles or snacks. Beans help you stay alert, calm, and not panic. And that is the most important thing for survival. But the scary thing is that most Americans prepare beans in the worst way. They think beans are too boring, they don't taste good, and so they buy jerky, snacks, expensive protein bars. Things that can't keep anyone alive for more than 2 to 3 days in a real crisis. Some people do buy beans but forget one crucial thing: water. They don't realize that dry beans require a lot of water and time to cook. And when clean water is cut off, dry beans become a burden. A viewer said something very true. You're going to need water to cook rice and beans. No water? You're done. That is why many experienced preppers always prepare 2 types of beans at the same time: dry beans for long-term use, and canned beans for immediate eating when water, gas, or time won't allow cooking. What makes beans the muscle of survival is not just nutrition, it is durability. Properly stored dry beans can last 20-30 years. They don't change structure, don't lose value, and don't depend on a freezer. And in a time when the world is facing droughts, fertilizer shortages, agricultural price crises, and supply chain disruptions, bean prices have already risen by double digits in the past few years. If you wait until the supermarket runs out to buy, then you're already too late. Because the people who think ahead will always clear the shelves before you. But there is something even more important: the psychological factor. In chaos, people don't just need calories. They need the feeling of fullness. The feeling of a full stomach helps you feel safe, helps you think clearly, and helps you avoid making reckless decisions. Rice gives you steady energy, but beans give you the strength to stand up, work, repair your home, stay warm, and take care of your family. Beans are also one of the strongest barter items during a crisis. In many areas hit by the Snowmageddon storms, people said they were able to trade for clean water, candles, and even medicine with just a single can of beans. Not because it's expensive, but because it keeps a person's body and spirit alive on day 4, day 5, day 6 of chaos, when everything starts to become the most serious. And that is why beans are not a nice to have. They are mandatory. If rice keeps you steady, beans keep you strong. If rice keeps you calm, beans keep you from collapsing. If rice is the backbone, beans are the muscle. And without muscle, you cannot survive long in any crisis. Team Beans, where are you? Do you prefer dry beans or canned beans? Comment so I can see what type of survival muscle you have. Like and subscribe to the channel to learn about the essentials that could save your own life. 3 Oats. The silent assassin. There are foods that look worthless at first glance. Not expensive, not pretty, not appealing. On the supermarket shelf, it sits on the lowest rack, right next to brightly colored cereal boxes. But that ugly, unimpressive thing becomes a lifesaver in moments when people no longer have time to breathe. Oats. If rice is the backbone, beans are the muscle, then oats are the silent ace, the food no one respects, until the day the only things you have left are 60 seconds and a little hot water. What makes oats special is not the flavor or the variety, it is the speed. When you still have water, firewood, gas, and strength, everything is easy. But when the power has been out for 3 days, when the cold cuts into your bones, when you've just run out of a house destroyed by a storm, when you're so exhausted your hands shake and you can't even hold a pot, that is when oats appear like a savior. You only need one condition: hot water. Not a pot, not gas, not even a real flame. In many situations, you don't even need hot water. Oats can still be eaten raw, chewed dry, or mixed with a little cold water, so your body gets enough energy to stand up and keep moving for a few more hours. In survival situations, time is life. And that is why oats are frighteningly effective. 1 minute of eating, 4 hours of living. No other food can do that, especially when your body is crashing from lack of sugar, lack of strength, and lack of breath. When the Texas freeze of 2021 happened, millions of people lost power in below-freezing temperatures. Wind slammed against the doors, the lights went out completely, and electric stoves became useless blocks of metal. Many families said they survived the darkest hours with nothing but dry oats and a little hot water hurriedly heated by candles or a warm thermos. Nobody thinks about oats when going to the supermarket, but when there is no gas, no firewood, no strength left, that's when they realized some foods are not important until they become the most important thing. Oats don't make you full in the heavy stomach way like beans. They also don't give you the complete meal feeling like rice. But they do something else. Something absolutely essential in chaos. They keep your body rhythm stable. In the morning of a crisis, when your brain is stretched like a tight wire, when every sense is overactivated, the worst thing you can do is let your blood sugar crash. Sweet cereal wakes you up for 20 minutes and then drops like a rock down a well. Snacks throw your stomach into chaos. But oats? Oats are the longest-lasting energy you can load into your body at the start of the day. They don't spike. They don't crash. They simply keep you steady, focused, and not panicking. That is why many viewers have insisted, oats, peanut butter, rice, beans, flour, the exact 5 survival foods. And another shared, my combo, lentils, oats, peanut butter. These people are not influencers. They are real people living in places that have been hit by storms, blackouts, ice shutdowns, or supply chain breakdowns. Oats also have an advantage that rice or beans will never have: extremely lightweight. When you have to evacuate, running from wildfires, flash floods, or simply leaving an area without clean water, rice will slow you down. Beans will weigh your shoulders down. But oats are different. You can carry a full week's worth of meals in a single zipper bag as light as a few sheets of paper. In survival thinking, that is a strategic advantage. Oats also have an extremely long shelf life if stored properly. No complicated techniques, no advanced prepper skills, just a dry, dark, sealed space. And they can last 10, 20, even 30 years, depending on the type and packaging. That is why military personnel, long-distance athletes, and true survivalists All consider oats the silent nail, unnoticed, but holding the entire survival plan together. What makes oats most different is not the nutrition, not the price, but the psychology. When the outside world is chaotic, when nothing feels normal anymore, people crave one thing: routine, a familiar rhythm. And a bowl of oats in the morning is exactly that rhythm. Not because it tastes good, but because it makes your brain believe that everything still has order. That feeling, in chaos, is worth more than gold. Oats aren't sexy. They don't appear in food review videos. They're not something anyone posts on Instagram. They are looked down on, ignored, considered for poor people or gym people. But in survival, they are the silent assassin. They are the lifesaver when your body has no strength left. They are what you eat when you have nothing else to eat. That is why oats, small and ordinary enough to be forgotten, are still an irreplaceable part of any survival plan. If you've ever survived because of a quick meal when you were exhausted, comment the word oats. I want to hear your story. 2. Flour. Civilization in powder form. When the world falls back into darkness, people cling to whatever remains to feel like they haven't been swept away. And among everything you can store, from rice, beans, oats, to fat, only one thing reminds you that you are still human: flour. Flour is not just food, it is civilization compressed into powder. If you have flour, you have bread, you have hope. In every war, every blackout, every brutal winter, bread always appears as a gentle reminder. It's not over yet. During the Great Depression, when millions of American families lived in prolonged scarcity, people might skip meals, might eat less, but they rarely went without flour. Wheat berries were hand ground, mixed with water, baked on cast iron pans. Not because it tasted good, but because it kept the family's spirit from breaking under the circumstances. Flour back then was the last thing that preserved the feeling of a proper meal. It wasn't luxurious, but it gave people a sense of humanity. Flour differs from rice or beans in one very special way. It turns separate ingredients into a complete meal. A bowl of rice gives you energy. A bowl of beans gives you strength. But a piece of bread, even the simplest one, gives you warmth, fullness, and familiarity. In a crisis, familiarity is the strongest psychological weapon. It helps you stay calm, helps children not panic, helps adults feel like there is still something in their life that has order. That is why many experienced preppers always store wheat berries instead of only storing flour. Wheat berries last more than 30 years and can be hand ground if the power goes out. Your viewers have also mentioned this. Don't forget grain grinders. Electricity can become a memory. And when wheat is no longer available, alternative grains like amaranth can also become a lifeline. Amaranth can replace wheat. But the greatest value of flour lies in its ability to create morale. No one barters canned peas in a crisis, but a hot loaf of bread? That is gold. It is something you can trade for medicine, candles, clean water, or even help from neighbors when things truly get bad. The sad thing is that many people store flour incorrectly. They leave it in paper bags, sitting right in the pantry. Something that can spoil in 8 to 12 months, absorb moisture, or be invaded by insects. When all it takes is one simple step: Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and a food-grade bucket, and you've protected your family's spiritual lifeline for many years. In survival, it's not just energy and protein that decide everything. People need the feeling that they are still living a meaningful life. Flour does that. It's not a superfood, not a super protein. but it is a sign of hope. And hope is what keeps people standing when everything else is collapsing. Rice keeps you alive. Beans keep you strong. Oats keep you steady. But flour keeps you human. Team bread versus team rice. In your opinion, which one keeps morale stronger in a crisis? Comment to see which side is bigger. Like and subscribe to the channel to discover which food holds the final spot. 1. Peanut butter, the wild card. There are foods you stockpile because of logic, but there are also foods you keep because you feel they will save you at the exact worst moment. Peanut butter is that kind of food. A small jar, but with a power many people never realize until they are standing in the middle of chaos, hungry, shaking, and without any living conditions left. Rice needs water. Beans need time. Oats need at least a bit of warmth. Flour needs kneading, needs heat. But peanut butter? It works when all four of those fail. That is why it is called the wild card. The secret card you only play when the game is at the line between life and death. Peanut butter provides the one thing the body is most desperate for in a collapse: fat. Fat doesn't just give energy. It keeps your brain alert, keeps your hormones stable, and prevents your organs from falling into rabbit starvation. Something that killed many people in the past because they ate too little fat. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, 200 calories, clean, dense, durable. 1 16 O's jar, 3,000 calories, enough to carry you through a day with no water, no fire, no gas, no stove, nothing except the will to survive. But the strongest and most honest comment is the one that made many preppers stop and silently rethink. Add 2 tablespoons of oil to rice, 300 calories. Correct. Fat is the thing 99% of people forget, and peanut butter is the only fat source that is convenient, cheap, powerful, and requires absolutely no conditions to eat. Imagine the moment everyone fears most. You're running from a wildfire. It's dark, no water, no fire. You can't stop, you can't cook, you can't turn on a stove. All you have left is a jar of peanut butter and a spoon. 1 spoonful in your mouth, 200 calories straight into your blood. Your hands shake less. Your legs have enough strength to run another 3 miles. Your brain wakes up. Your heartbeat stabilizes. And most importantly, you gain more time to live. No other food can do that. Not rice, not beans, not oats, not flour, only peanut butter. In a collapse, its value is no longer in flavor. It becomes a unit of energy, bartered like medicine, batteries, candles, or clean water. A jar of peanut butter at that moment could be traded for a service, another meal, even for someone's help. Peanut butter is not a food you show off, not a food you think of first, but it is the food you will thank when everything falls apart. And that is why it is called the wild card, the last card, but the strongest in the entire deck. If you've ever carried peanut butter while traveling, evacuating, or camping, share your experience. You've just seen the 5 foods that can keep you alive when the system collapses. Not because they taste good, not because they're cheap, but because they work, even when everything else fails. Rice, beans, oats, flour, peanut butter. That is not a food list. That is a survival framework. Now I want to ask you, if you could choose only one of the 5, which one would you choose? I will pin the best comment. And if you want the next video, 10 foods you should never stockpile because they will betray you. Comment. Want more?